You never really know how crazy a neighborhood can be until the HOA president decides you're her next project. For us, that moment came the day my wife, 6 months into her new job as the county's chief of police, stepped outside wearing her off duty holster. We'd worked years to afford our place in Willow Ridge Estates. I wanted peace. She wanted a safe place to raise our daughter. But what we got was an HOA ruled by one woman, Karen DeWitt, a self proclaimed community enforcer who treated every driveway like her jurisdiction. Before we dive in, comment which country you're watching from. Let's see how far this story travels. From the moment we moved in, Karen had been watching us. She'd slow walk past our house, pretending to inspect landscaping, jotting notes in her little binder like she was writing arrest warrants. The woman had no badge, no training, just power issues and a whistle. Then came the notices. Mailbox exceeds height regulations. Trash bins left in view after pickup. Unapproved garden decor. Each one signed by Karen DeWitt, HOA president. Each one came with a $75 fine. Laura laughed at first. She's got too much time on her hands, she said, tossing the latest citation onto the counter. What's next? A fee for breathing too loud? But the laughter didn't last. Karen started showing up in person, clipboard in hand, that permanent smirk plastered on her face. She'd circle our driveway like a vulture, snapping photos of our front yard. Once I caught her measuring the distance between our fence posts. When I confronted her, she said, "Just ensuring community compliance, sir. Don't want property values to suffer." I didn't realize she meant our property values, because the more I ignored her petty warnings, the more she targeted us. That morning, Laura was off to her office, wearing jeans, boots, and her uniform. Her service weapon was holstered, completely visible. I was trimming the hedges when I heard Karen's voice slice through the quiet like a siren. "Excuse me, you can't walk around armed in this neighborhood." Laura looked up calmly. "Ma'am, I'm a police officer. It's perfectly legal." Karen crossed her arms. "I don't care who you say you are. This is private property under HOA rules. Guns aren't allowed." That's when Laura's patience thinned. "Your HOA rules don't override state law," she said evenly, "and you don't have the authority to enforce criminal statutes." But Karen didn't want logic. She wanted control. She opened her phone, muttering about neighborhood safety and calling the authorities. 5 minutes later, I heard sirens. 2 squad cars pulled up, lights flashing, and Karen stood proudly beside them like she just cracked a major case. The first officer out of the patrol car shouted before his boots even hit the pavement, "Ma'am, step away from the woman and keep your hands visible." That was the first thing Laura heard while tightening her duty belt, halfway between the porch and her car. She froze, uniform crisp, badge gleaming in the morning sun. I turned from the hedges, confused. What's going on? 2 officers were already fanned out in a defensive stance, hands hovering near their holsters, eyes locked on my wife. Laura raised her voice, calm but firm. "Officers, identify yourselves." "What's the problem?" The senior one called out. "We received a call about a woman in costume brandishing a firearm. Are you armed, ma'am?" Laura exhaled, slow and steady. "Yes, I'm armed because I'm a police officer." She reached for her badge, clipped to her chest, and held it high. "Chief Laura Hayes, County Sheriff's Office." The rookie blinked, startled. "Chief?" That's when Karen DeWitt, phone in hand, said loud enough for the body cams to catch it, "That's her. She's impersonating a cop. Look at her costume. She's been parading around all week with a gun." Laura turned her head slowly. "A costume?" Karen puffed up. "This is private property under HOA jurisdiction. You can't just walk around armed." The senior officer turned toward her, uncertain. "Ma'am, are you the complainant?" "Of course," Karen snapped. "Someone had to keep this neighborhood safe." Laura took one step forward, her tone still measured but carrying the weight of authority. "Florida Statute 790.25 allows law enforcement officers to carry on or off duty, Mrs. DeWitt, and filing a false police report under Statute 837.05 carries up to a year in jail." Karen blinked, visibly shrinking. I didn't know she was really a cop. That's the problem," Laura said. "You didn't check. You just assumed." The older officer cleared his throat. "Chief Hayes, I apologize. We'll document the false report." I couldn't resist. "Yeah, make sure to add Karen's neighborhood panic attack as the headline." The rookie tried not to smile. Karen's face turned red. "You'll regret mocking me," she hissed before storming back toward her house, dragging her dog like a prop. Laura holstered her weapon and turned to the officers. "You two did your job, but next time, verify your source before escalating. Some people weaponize the system because they can't control it." The older cop nodded respectfully. "Understood, Chief. We'll file the report accordingly." By the time they left, the neighborhood had gathered in clusters along the sidewalks, whispering. Within hours, the HOA message board was on fire, residents demanding to know why Karen had called 911 on a police chief. That night, the doorbell rang. 6 neighbors stood there, holding brownies and coffee. One woman said, "We saw everything. That lady's out of control. What can we do to help?" Laura smiled faintly. "You already did. you saw the truth. But deep down, we both knew Karen wasn't done. She just declared war. If you're enjoying this HOA story so far, like and subscribe because the story is only going to get better. By the next morning, the neighborhood's group chat had turned into a courtroom. Half the residents were furious that Karen had called 911 on a uniformed officer. The other half couldn't believe she doubled down by claiming the uniform looked fake. I was in the kitchen when Laura came downstairs, coffee in one hand, her expression unreadable. "Internal Affairs called," she said. My heart skipped. "What now?" "They received a complaint from Karen accusing me of impersonating myself." I almost spit out my drink. "You're kidding." Laura shook her head. She attached a blurry photo from her phone, claiming my badge number didn't match the records. Only problem, it's the same badge I've had for 10 years. That was when I knew this wasn't just harassment. It was defamation. I spent the rest of the day gathering everything, the 911 transcript, the body cam footage, and HOA meeting minutes where Karen had already bragged about keeping the neighborhood safe from armed imposters. At sunset, Laura called her department attorney. Filing a false report is a first-degree misdemeanor. Repeated targeting and harassment can be charged as stalking, and when it's aimed at a law enforcement officer, the penalties multiply. The attorney didn't mince words. "Chief, we can press charges and file a civil suit for defamation and emotional distress. You've got everything you need." That night, the HOA called an emergency meeting. Karen sat at the end of the long table, arms folded, still pretending she'd done nothing wrong. When Laura entered, in uniform, the room went silent. Karen forced a laugh. "Oh, here we go. Trying to intimidate me in costume again?" Laura placed a manila folder on the table. "Here's the police report, the 911 audio, and your signed statement. You lied to dispatch, endangered responding officers, and tried to damage my career. You're finished, Karen." Karen's smile faltered. "You can't threaten me in an HOA meeting." One of the board members spoke up. "Actually, Karen, we voted last night. You're suspended from all HOA duties until the investigation concludes." Her jaw dropped. "You can't do that." Another neighbor leaned forward. "We just did." 2 weeks later, Karen's name appeared in the county docket system. Charge 1, filing a false police report. Charge 2, harassment of a law enforcement officer. Charge 3, obstruction of justice. The HOA's insurance provider launched its own review, citing liability exposure due to a board member's misconduct. When the court date arrived, Karen tried every excuse in the book. "I was just trying to protect the neighborhood. I thought she was pretending to be a cop." The judge wasn't impressed. "Mrs. DeWitt, you knowingly filed a false emergency report and defamed an active duty officer. Ignorance isn't a defense." Verdict: guilty on all counts. She was fined $15,000, ordered to attend anger management, and barred from holding any HOA position in the county again. As Laura and I walked out of the courthouse, news cameras swarmed. One reporter shouted, "Chief Hayes, any comment for the record?" Laura smiled slightly. "Just this, when you use 911 to feed your ego, someone innocent could die. Think before you dial." That night, we drove home past Karen's house. Her yard was dark, her HOA president sign gone. Justice at last had clocked in right on time. And that's how Karen learned the hard way that when you call the cops on the chief of police, karma shows up wearing a badge. The end.